is Sarah Cohen. Thank you for coming here today. What happened today here this evening brought me back a little bit when I was a child in Israel, growing with suicide bombers, and what's going on now brought me back to my childhood. Now, what made me feel safe in Israel is to see those patrols, those soldiers around. We had volunteers, veterans, or people that just from the neighborhood that just patrol the community. As a child, you'd be safe. When Israel was attacked by chemical weapons, the government gave all the citizens gas masks. It made me feel safe. It made me feel secure. My question is today, is there any kind of funds or grants that we can get and maybe give a simple thing as a bulletproof vest to those places or people that are more at risk? Or anything else, any idea. But some kind of funds, I understand that cameras is very important and all those things. But patrol and maybe vest or something else that little children will feel maybe more secure. Or adults, or so anybody can get these grants, get this money, and just distribute the bulletproof vests.
Thank you. Here's what I will say. I recently spoke at Shari Zion, which is a large Sephardic temple in South Brooklyn. And as I walked in, they pointed my attention to a new capital project that they just executed. It cost them $1 million. And it is a line of bulletproof glass. And there were 4 men, volunteers, wearing body vests. They said, when people after shul are waiting to be picked up, we now instruct them to stand behind the glass. Here in New York City. So, and I think I speak for everyone, over our collective dead bodies, does anybody continue to go being that fearful to pray? Whether they're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or any other faith here in New York City. So we will go to any extent to help put people at ease so long as it respects the law and the Constitution. But I do think, and I believe that that Israel shares this North Star, that our North Star should be people feeling safe. Safe, so safe that they don't have to wear body armor. So safe that they don't have to see someone with an AR-15 or an M4 on the corner. So safe that they believe that they can finally go outside with their kippah again. That's got to be our North Star. That has got to be our collective goal. But man, I thank you so much for drawing attention yet again to the story of what Israeli citizens have had to go through. It is all too often forgotten over the last 30 years, the myriad of different ways in which Jews and non-Jews alike living in Israel have had to live in fear. And I so deeply thank you for telling us that story.
So, okay, that's a round of applause for our elected officials on this community members. I do have one question, my wife Rachel speaks about this almost every night. And I always say at our meetings, the last private meeting we had, I believe that education is the silver bullet. I believe that education to teach or unteach, because these people are very educated, these people are bigots or self-hating people. They're taught to hate. They're taught to hate from the second they're born. They didn't just come out hating people. Their parents, their friends, somebody taught them this. It's our job now to unteach them, to teach them about love, to teach them about equality, to teach them that we're not so different than you or you or you or you. We put our pants on the same way. We pray the same way. As long as we get to the same place, no matter how we have to drive there, the same goal without hurting people, that's important. So, my wife constantly asks me, why can't we go to school and teach these people, show these people what is what is right? So I'm going to throw it to anyone that wants to answer this question. Can we do that?
So I think that, in fact, I know the DA and Chief Corey can speak to that specific education piece, and I know you have tremendous partnerships with the borough president around specifically drug use. But we can have the best education programs in the world, and if our children come home and go on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and they see this content, we'll never truly be able to overcome this. We have to disabuse ourselves of the notion that the First Amendment applies to Facebook. It doesn't. Facebook can decide to have whatever code of conduct it wants. Facebook can decide that it doesn't allow any speech on its platforms. It would be very bad for business, but it's a private company. And every single user of Facebook, whether you realize it or not, agrees to abide by that code of conduct. The other day I did an interview with NBC, and we pulled up these anti-Semitic memes that Facebook says doesn't meet the threshold of anti-Semitic content. These social media companies are choosing profit over protecting us from this type of vitriol, and it is time that we stand up and we say to them, if you don't change this code of conduct, if you don't invest big money in getting, whether it's terrorist content or otherwise, off our platforms, then you're going to lose some users.
I'm just going to add, before I turn over to the Council General, and I'll make this my closing remark as well as scheduled, because I know the hour's getting late. But to Bernice's point, and to the gentleman in the back asking about the College of Staten Island, and with my co-chairman's permission, I think what we're going to do is seek to add educators, in particular representatives from the colleges, but also from DOE and from the Catholic school system and the yeshivas and all, to add them to our task force to really solidify our education initiative, if you will, right? To really get that forward. Chief Corey says, okay, so we're good to go. So,
to actually congratulate him on his vote last week with regard to the War Powers Act, dealing with a terrorist. Now, you said you agreed with the governor's assessment that anti-Semitic hate is domestic terrorism, and my rationale for the killing of Soleimani is that he is a terrorist. Now, if we are combating domestic terrorism in the same way we are combating international terrorism, are you saying it's okay to now kill these terrorists?
You're something else. Yeah. I'm not saying that.
Why not?
So, what do you want, a drone attack in Tomville? What are you doing? Just relax for a second. So, this is a complicated issue, so I'm just going to take a few minutes to walk you all through my thinking of this. First of all, when I'm looking at the issue of foreign terrorist designation, right now, the State Department has 61 organizations designated as foreign terrorist organizations. None of them neo-Nazi organizations. Plenty of them anti-Semitic. ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Quds, all anti-Semitic organizations, but none of them neo-Nazis. And what we have seen, whether it was Poway, Pittsburgh, the shooting in El Paso, is what you often hear on the media thereafter is, look, that was a lone shooter. Lone shooter. You all have heard that term before, right? It doesn't do it justice, though. So many of these killings and so many of these domestic neo-Nazi organizations are actually tied to a global infrastructure. I'll give you one example. There's something called the Azov Battalion. It was a neo-Nazi militia in Ukraine. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the Ukrainian military integrated into its army and to fight the Russians. Since then, there have been 17,000 foreign fighters, including some from the United States, that have gone to fight with the Azov Battalion, a neo neo-Nazi militia. That's more foreign fighters that went to go fight with the Mujahideen during the entirety of the 80s in Afghanistan. So this is a very serious problem, and I do believe, and I led a letter to the Secretary of State, to the top 3 neo-Nazi organizations should be labeled as foreign terrorist organizations. So when you provide them with money, or you recruit for them, or you translate their text, or whatever it might be, we can charge you with providing material support to a terrorist organization. The domestic terrorism charge is another step, and the step is twofold. One is that you can extrapolate on the hate crimes charge. Okay, when someone tries to murder 6 people, and it is a targeted act rooted in ideology, I'm sorry, hate crime ain't enough for me. I do believe that that is an act of domestic terrorism, but there are also emerging domestic terrorism organizations. Atomwaffen is an organization that I noted. The Base is another one. The literal translation of Al-Qaeda is the base. Neo-Nazis and white nationalism has accounted for more acts of terrorism, more terrorist deaths, than jihadist-inspired terrorism post 9/11 in the United States. This is a real problem. We have to address it. If we label certain organizations, and we have to treat this with due care, but if we label certain domestic terrorist organizations that are deserving of it, then you have a providing material support to a domestic terrorist organization charge as well. So as you can see, this is complicated stuff, but none of this should result in us being able to conduct targeted killings in the United States. There's a distinction between Title 10 and Title 50, and it's there for a reason, but I do respect your creativity.
Make a quick comment to Reverend Troyer. I wanted to personally Kojo, Reverend Troyer, diligently working, forming together with Rabbi Howard and Rabbi Sussman, the Staten Islanders against anti-Semitism. As a Jewish community, it's important to hear from the broader community, and the support as a child of the Holocaust survivor means a lot to me. Thank you, Reverend Troyer.
Meeting, and thank you for all the officials that showed up. It does mean a lot to us. A lot has been mentioned. I know hate crime is very complicated as we presented it today. There's the aspect of surveillance, there's the aspect of prosecution, etc. Education was also mentioned. I believe education, or the lack of it, is really key at the ground-based level. Elementary school or high schools, I think, were mentioned. My specific question is, the College of Staten Island, my kids have attended there, is rampant with anti-Semitism. And I know professors that were literally shut down, not allowed to speak, Palestinian protests, BDS movements, etc. I'd like to know, is there any coordination, or who is in charge of, shall we say, security, anti-hate at the college level? These are our future leaders, future businessmen, and I just think, A, they definitely have a lack of education. B, they are swept in, and when you're young and you're all driven and all emotional, they would just go along with the flow. I'd like to know what is being done at the College of Staten Island.
So let me first address on a large scale what's happening on our college campuses. And I am a believer in the Holocaust Center's definition of anti-Semitism as it pertains to Israel, which is executing or providing for undue criticism of Israel. And there are many different ways in which we can have a conversation about that, but you certainly know it when you see it. One reason why I was one of the few Democrats to support the President of the United States executive order on this is because it is time that we just acknowledge what is happening on our college campuses, acknowledge the fact that so many of our Jewish students are afraid to say that they're Jewish, or when they say they're Jewish, they have to then criticize Israel so as to gain entree into progressive circles. That is wrong, and we have got to say so, and that needs to be reflected in our policies as well. I'm a firm believer, and I'm unapologetic in that regard. So, as this, thank you for that little applause right there, but when it comes to anything that is happening on our universities here on Staten Island, we can talk about this on the national level, but if it's happening here, then we've got to know about it, and we've got to use all the tools at our disposal, legislative, but as well as drawing attention to them and putting public pressure on the administrators of those universities to quickly cut it out, or else they'll quickly lose our support.
Do that.
At a local level, not on the college campus.
Well, first thing is that you have to bring it to our attention. Second thing is that there's obviously a myriad of different ways in which that university, if it is fostering anti-Semitism, supporting anti-Semitism in any way, shape, and form, none of us support that. We all support a right to free speech. We get that. We concede that. I bled in combat, and I watched people get hurt in combat to protect the Constitution. No one supports the right of free speech, so long as I'm around. But when it comes down to it, I want to say one last thing about BDS. It's a complicated issue. There's many ways that we can put pressure on them. But so long as if I have the right to free speech, I will call the BDS movement what it is and what I believe it to be, which is an anti-Semitic movement.
Good evening. My name is Mortimer Samuels. First of all, thank you all for showing up, and in particular to the police. Actually, Inspector Molinari was out Sunday morning before church last Sunday to meet with the Rabbinical Alliance of America, the RAA, and it's very important to have your support, so it's very welcome. I wanted to share this with you and ask a request at the end of it. It was written in response to the attack in Pittsburgh on October 28th, 2018. My grandparents were survivors of Auschwitz. My grandmother and mother, may they rest in peace, taught me, among many things, one strong rule. There are two types of people in this world: those who choose to do good and those who choose to do evil. My grandparents paid a high price to learn this lesson, so others would not have to pay such a high price. We must mourn the loss of all good people, be they Jew, African American, or other member of humanity. We must reach beyond tolerance toward acceptance. We must realize each other's dignity as living beings, whether from a single creator or a single amoeba. Anything else is semantics, and I'm anti-semantic. My question and request to you, thank you. It's from my teacher and Tom, the teacher in Israel. Now, this may be semantics, but this request is to everyone, maybe we can start it in here. The term anti-Semitism takes the very subject of the hateful act out, which is a Jew. Whoever came up with that term was a Jew hater. I'm convinced of it. Because, first of all, there's no mention of a Jew. Technically, a Semite is someone who is the son or daughter of Shem. That would include Arabs, by the way. How about that? So they took out the Jews from that term. Also, I'm anti a lot of things. When I'm I'm anti the Ravens. I don't like the Ravens. If I see someone wearing a Ravens outfit, do I come up and I want to smack them upside the face? I don't think so. Right? So it's more than anti, it's Jew hating. And I think the term needs to be used more often, and the term anti-Semite needs to be stricken out of the record completely. Seriously. Because it elevates the term, anti-Semitism versus Jew hating. I'm a Jew, I'm not a Semite. I'm a human being first, I'm a Jew second. Fair enough request? Maybe we can start again in this room?
Last question.
Yeah.